marks the return of the Saint, George Groves. A lot of people are excited about his comeback and think that he's got a lot to offer the super middleweight division. Um, I, as you know, can be skeptical about fighters. Now, I like George Groves. I think he's got good power. I think he's got lots of guts, and I think that he is confident in his abilities. Um, and under the tutelage of Adam Booth, um, I think with Booth by his side, he was able to cover over some weaknesses that probably weren't as apparent as they are now. I say this by saying that on looking back at the way George Groves got stopped by um, Carl Froch, Carl Froch has never knocked out anybody at world level the way he knocked out George Groves. And give Carl respect all the credit in the world, multiple world champion, fought the best there is around, and you can never say Carl Froch is a duck or anything like that. But one thing Carl Froch is not is a one punch knockout artist. He might knock you down with a combination. He's a hurtful puncher, but he's not a one punch bang and knock you out. Now, George Groves didn't just get dropped, he got knocked out cold with one shot. And for me, that's a worrying sign. It's a worrying sign on top of the fact that you hear lots of rumours of George being knocked out cold in sparring. And not once, not twice, even three times. It seems a common occurrence. So, and then his stamina issues. He was tiring against DeGale, in the fight. He was tiring against Froch, because that's when Froch actually caught up with him. That's when he was getting tired and got tagged. And then people said, well, the fight was premature stoppage. And I suspect he was tiring when he was with Froch the second time around and got dropped and knocked out. So, is George Groves at world level a bit too soon? That's my question mark, because I don't think George has had the fights, to lend himself at world level. I really don't. I think there's a lot more to just knocking people over. You need to go for those tough fights. Yes, he had the Kenny Anderson fight. Never gave Kenny Anderson the rematch. Now that would have been an interesting fight to see George come through that and do a better job than Kenny Anderson. So there are question marks. I've done this video before. It got deleted for some reason on YouTube, so I'm redoing it again. So my thoughts on George Groves are happy to see the young man coming back. He's fighting a European champion who's ranked, I believe, 20th by BoxRec, and in I think 20th in the world and second in France, and is European champion, I believe. Christophe Rebrassi. Well, I didn't know his name. I'm not really interested in the fight, to be honest, and that's just being frank and really honest with you. I'm not interested in the fight. I expect Groves will probably knock this guy out. One thing Groves does, he punches with both hands. Again, but I still think he's vulnerable. Paul Smith caught Groves in the first round, ended the first round. I think he rocked him pretty badly in the first round. Groves came out in the second round and stopped him. But, like I said before, Groves has to get his fitness up, his stamina needs to be improved under pressure. Don't talk to me about the Glenn Johnson fight, because Glenn Johnson had just come out of retirement. He came out for a payday, be honest. So Glenn Johnson just went for the 12 rounds and just wanted to stay on his feet, which he did. So I'm not completely convinced about George Groves. So it's not hating. I think George is a good guy, a good fighter, nice guy, but this is not about personalities here. This is about boxing. And has George had the right fights to keep him at world level? Should he lose another fight that's at world level, what are we going to say about George Groves? And the question is the Paddy Fitzpatrick, logistics. How does that work now? Him being in the camp and him now being the head trainer for George Groves. Did you think that Groves looked better in the second fight against Froch? Well, in the first fight when Booth wasn't even in the corner for the first fight. because he went in the fight without Booth in the first fight, and he went in for the second fight with Fitzpatrick, if I'm right. So I don't know. I'm not so sure. Well, I'm not sure, but I'm not so sure that George Groves fights well without Adam Booth. Adam Booth is the master of that style. George Groves and of course David Haye. I believe Adam Booth was going to try and do what he did with David Haye to George Groves. And I believe Adam Booth's style is one where um, I'm not sure if that style, once you've learnt that style, you can adapt to do anything else afterwards. Groves is a sharpshooter, meaning that he'll get in, get out. But when he gets in and gets out, he gets caught with punches. And for me, he's getting hit way too often. And for somebody who I don't think's got the greatest chin, that's not really advisable. And someone who keeps his left hand down very low, that's how he got knocked up by Carl Froch. I think that timing and distance, there's the things you have to learn. You learn these things in the gym, and you learn these things in big fights. But has George had the right build up? He jumped the gun, I felt, when he fought Carl Froch the first time round, and now he got knocked out the second time round. So now he's come back at European level, and if he beats the European guy at the European level, then he's back in the world mix again, with questionable stamina and a questionable chin and questionable defense. There's no way you should be getting knocked out of a shot like that. Carl Froch is a good fighter, but he's not a technically gifted athlete. And for somebody who everyone's saying George is the boxer here, boxer puncher, you don't get caught with shots like that and get knocked out like that. I'm afraid to say. Was it a mistake? Don't know. But Carl Froch doesn't knock anybody out of that world. I don't care what anybody tells me. Doesn't get knock anybody out of that level. So the return of the Saint, great. He's back. But what does he do now? And where does he go from here? So those are my thoughts on the Saint. I wish it could have been more exciting and more interesting, but those are my thoughts. Controversial as usual, but I don't do it deliberately. It's just that I don't see what the hype is all about and all the fuss is all about. Sure, George Grove is back, and I think he's fighting on Sky. So what? Not disrespecting George Groves. I just don't see what all the excitement's about. In fact, I haven't seen excitement about a person who's been knocked out and beaten in 2 fights. I don't see what all the excitement's about. I just don't. You know, it's like if it's a homecoming, he's won a world title. He got knocked out in Wembley, at Wembley. That's as close as home can be for him. You know, and everyone's like pushing the thing about him coming back. I don't get it. I just don't. Sorry. You know, they're going to be tougher nights ahead. But if he wins the European title, fantastic. If he doesn't, it's not going to look too good for George Groves. But I expect George to win this fight. So those are my thoughts. I'm out.